And welcome back, guys. I finally had my haircut. As you can see, I was terrible in my previous video, and apologies for that. But that being said, let's just move on and let's talk about this lens over here, the Sony 16-55 F2.8, the standard F2.8 zoom from Sony. This lens was launched in 2021 when there was no professional lens in the APSC catalog, and it was launched at a whopping price of $1,400. Now, considering the price and considering the fact that at that time there was really no professional APS-C Sony cameras, because yes, the A6700 was a good camera, but it was still using a super old sensor. So there was really no professional cameras, while in the meantime Fuji was pushing the bar pretty far. This lens generated a lot of negativity because of that price range. $1,400 was a lot. It was pretty much the same cost of the camera, and this was a professional lens while there was no professional camera to match this with. Nowadays, 2023, end of 2023, this lens can be purchased for a much more reasonable price. I purchased it at a incredible price, and we're going to talk about that, but it is not sold at $1,400 anymore. It's around the $1,000 mark, which makes a lot more sense. And we finally have in Sony a professional or semi-professional camera, a camera that makes sense to pair with this lens in the A6700. So this lens now starts to make a lot more sense. Now, this lens is part of the G series, so it's almost the top of the line series that you have from Sony. That means that it's got almost the best that Sony can offer. It's made of really high quality plastics. It's still plastics. I mean, they could probably call it polycarbonate, fancy name. It's plastic. It's a very high quality plastic, but it's still plastic. It's got the usual zoom ring that you see over here, and as you can see, the lens extends a little bit. It's got the autofocus, manual focus switch on this side. It's got your customizable button, and it doesn't have, and of course, it's got your manual focus ring over here. Now, both the zooming ring and the manual focus ring feel really good. Actually, the zooming ring is exceptional. I'm going to talk about that in video. Other than that, the lens doesn't have anything more than that. The lens hood is plasticky, who cares? The good thing about this lens, though, is for being an f2.8 lens, and it's 24-80 2.5 equivalent on full frame, this lens is super compact and very lightweight. Now, we're not talking compact and lightweight such as the Sigma 18-250, because that is incredibly compact and lightweight. But we're going to see that this lens is better when it comes to image quality. But compared to any other lens, this is definitely very compact and very lightweight. It weighs less than 500 grams, which again for a f2.8 zoom is very impressive. It's got no aperture ring, which is kind of a bummer, because the way Sony is going and is pushing their lenses now is to add an aperture ring, both clickable and declickable, in their lenses. But I guess this lens was launched before they started thinking about it. It's fine. We're gonna survive with that. And it's got a 67mm front lens thread, which is not massive. It's actually pretty manageable. I really don't have anything to complain about this lens. It's obviously water sealed. I was going to forget that, but finally, fortunately I remember it. And construction-wise, it's a very nice lens. It's not gonna get you that wow factor that maybe some the best Fuji lenses get you, or even the modern Viltrox lenses get you. They are built like tanks. This is not, but it doesn't feel cheap at all. And it's overall, it definitely gets the job done, and there's nothing to complain about it at all. Speaking of autofocus with this lens, what should I say? It's 99.9% of the time perfectly in focus, whether it is for video or for photo, whether you're tracking or it's single focus. It definitely is a great lens when it comes to focusing. And you kind of expect that from Sony, but it's refreshing to see that this lens is no different from what the other Sony lenses have been as of late. So super silent, very fast, very accurate, really nothing to complain about. Now, a lens like this at that cost brings a lot of expectation with it, because that cost has to mean that the lens is almost perfect when it comes to image quality. And I'm not gonna be super detail oriented in this review, but I can tell you that this lens is one of the sharpest lenses throughout the zooming range, throughout the frame range that I've ever seen. At 16mm F2.8, it's super sharp in the center, and it's very sharp, super sharp also in the corners. The difference stopping down between F2.8 or F8 or F5.6 is basically non-existent. You can only get away with that very minor vignetting that you can see, but it's it's almost unnoticeable, and you don't even have to worry about it. But when it comes to sharpness, F2.8 to F8, it's basically the same. You don't have to worry about it. That means that you decide your aperture not because of the performance of the lens, is because of what you want to tell with that photo. Same goes at 35. Again, corner to corner, incredible sharpness, and stopping down doesn't really improve at all. It's just, again, a choice because of what you want to tell. The only moment where the corners are a little bit behind the center, it's at 55, where you have a little bit more vignetting and just a little bit of smearing at the corners at f2.8, but you get to f5.6, and again, the image is perfect corner to corner. It's a very impressive performance when it comes to sharpness. Now, keep in mind, in Sony APS-C, you don't have the 40 megapixel yet. I guess Sony is gonna use that because they make it for Fuji. But for now, we don't have a way to test it with a higher megapixel count camera. So on the 26 megapixel sensor, this lens is mind-blowingly sharp. Really impressive performance when it comes to sharpness. The diffraction starts to kick in at f11. It is usable up until f16, although the damage is really big already. At f22, the lens is basically unusable. When it comes to bokeh, the lens is nice, has a nice bokeh. It's nothing to write home about, but it's not bad either. It's just a normal f2.8 zooms bokeh. None of them really blow your mind when it comes to bokeh. This is no exception. Chromatic aberration are very well controlled when it comes to purple fringing and all of that. The only flaw of this lens when it comes to image quality is that when you're focusing really close, there's a fair visible amount of longitudinal chromatic aberration that you gotta stop down up till 5.6 to almost get it out of the way, but you actually need to go to f8 to make sure that there's no longitudinal chromatic aberration. This is, in my opinion, the only flaw of this lens when it comes to image quality, because other than that, the lens performs really good. It is very good also when it comes to flare. It does appear at times, but it doesn't ruin the image, and sometimes it's also nice and artistic. It does give you decent sun stars, not the best, not the worst, usable. Again, it's not born, it was not born for that, so keep that in mind, but it's not bad. It focuses decently close, but it's not like the newer Sony or Tamron lenses, which they both have almost macro capabilities. This one is not. It can focus, I guess, 30 centimeters. 33 centimeters from the subject, which is not dramatically good, but the good thing is at the minimum focusing distance, the lens is really, really sharp. Now, in general, the performance that you get out of this lens when it comes to sharpness, not just shooting at the brick wall, but in the real world, is exceptional. It is a great lens when it comes to image quality, with the only flaw of having the longitudinal chromatic aberration when you're wide open. Other than that, the lens is almost perfect. Some would say it's probably too perfect, too clinical. Others would argue that's probably what a lens should be. I'll let you decide. As long as you know what you're getting into, it's going to be your choice. When it comes to video, you immediately notice that this lens doesn't have an image stabilizer, which was kind of a problem when it was launched, just because there were not that many APS-C camera with stabilization. And I heard that the stabilization in those cameras that had it was not that great. Fast forward to 2023, with the A6700, you don't have to worry much about that, because that stabilization is not bad at all. I mean, it's probably not Panasonic level, but it's decently good. So this lens makes a lot more sense, just because paired with that one, the stabilization is actually very good. I have no problem using it in video. Again, I tend to use most of the time the in-body image stabilization and the active image stabilization, which crops in a little bit, but gives you that smoother footage. Now, don't get me wrong, for the price, you could expect to find an image stabilizer in the lens, but it would have probably made it bigger and heavier. So it's trade-offs. For me, right now, having a 6700, it's not a big deal at all. The autofocus, as I mentioned already, is really good. The tracking doesn't miss. It's very reliable, and you don't really have to worry about that at all. Being this size and weight is easy to use on a gimbal, although, of course, when you zoom, the lens extends a little bit, so on smaller gimbals, less powerful gimbals, this may throw your motor's stabilization a little bit, but in general, it is usable, and you gotta be mindful when you use it. But it doesn't extend too much. It's not a huge extension, but it's something to keep in mind. The one thing that surprised me is that you can use this lens manually zooming it. So the zooming ring is so smooth that you can zoom pretty easily the lens, and the footage is not going to be jerky, it's not going to be jumpy, it is actually really good. I was not expecting that. Combine that with the fact that the lens doesn't lose the focus. It's not parfocal, but Sony does its magic when it comes to keep objects in focus as you zoom. This lens can basically be used like a powered zoom, although it's not a powered zoom. So it's something that I would not expect, which actually surprised me. But basically the amount of friction that you have is so nice that it allows you to do that pretty easily. Again, it's a bonus. You don't buy this lens for this just because it's not advertised to be a powered zoom, but you can get pretty good result that you're seeing right now. So in general, this lens performs really, really good. This lens is not compatible with the in-camera focus breathing compensation. That parameter is disabled when you put this lens on. But guess what? It's because basically this lens has no focus breathing at any focal length. If there's any, it's basically unnoticeable. And so the fact that it's not compatible with the compensation, who cares? You basically don't need it anyways. All in all, as I said, it's a great video lens. It's a great hybrid lens when it comes for photo and video. Now, if you got to this point, you probably understand that I'm pretty impressed with the way this lens performs. It is a very, very good lens. It was, and it still is, the only f2.8 first-party lens available in the market right now for Sony. And the only competition is the Sigma 18-50, which is smaller, however, with a smaller also focal range, or the Tamron 17-70, which is bigger, although with a bigger focal range, and it's stabilized. However, none of these two lenses can compete when it comes to image quality with this one. Regardless what any other person say, there's no comparison. I have used those for Fuji. I have a lot of video in my channel with those lenses, a single review for the Tamron, a single review for the Sigma, a comparison between the Tamron, the Sigma, and this Fuji 16-55. And those lenses are good, but those are not as good as the Fuji or this one. So keep that in mind. This is by far the best option when it comes to overall image quality. Of course, the price plays a huge difference in that, because if you have to buy for $1,400, then you start thinking about it, because the Sigma costs $500. So you're paying 3 times as much. It's up to you to decide whether it's a good investment or not. But the price that I got it, basically slightly less than 700 euros new, it's a no-brainer. If you can get this lens below the $1,000 mark, $900, $800, 900 euros, to me it is still a no-brainer just because of how good it is. There's really no comparison with any other lens available right now for Sony in this focal range. As I said, I would not recommend to buy it for $1,400, but at a much lower price, to me, is more than highly recommended. It's a great lens that perfectly fits what the A6700 can do, and together they combine for a very powerful, useful, and hybrid setup. Now, let me know in the comments below if you want to see a comparison between this 16-55 and the Fuji ones, although it's complicated because it's different camera, different system, and all of that, just to determine whether one or the other is the best APS-C lens in the market right now. Other than that, let me know what you think about this lens in the comment below. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't. Give me a thumbs up if you liked the video. Ciao, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.